All right, we're on chapter 4, how much work was allowed on the Sabbath, and we're going through sticks, stones, Sabbaths, and Sundays, seeing the Sabbath in light of the new covenant. We've covered a lot, but we got a lot to go. So let's look at this. How much work can be done on the Sabbath or should be done on the Sabbath under the old covenant? And the answer is no, not any, zero, zilch, nada. All right, we get this from several places. Leviticus 23, verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath day of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord in all your dwelling places. If we continue to look at Exodus 31, verse 15, whoever does any work on it, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath shall be put to death. Okay, so we find that the rule is extremely clear. We have it in the Commandments. We have it in Deuteronomy 5, Deuteronomy 20. We have it here in Exodus 31, verse 15. We have it in Leviticus 23, verse 3. Zero work is to be done. Deuteronomy 5 expounds upon this and lets us know in verse 12 through 15 that none of the Israelites are to work, but they're also not to try to work around this for God forbidding them to work by making their kids work, making their animals work, or by making a visitor work, or employing someone else who is not of this covenant community to work for them. Here we see the rules expounded upon in Deuteronomy 5, verse 12. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your ox, your donkey, or your livestock, or the sojourner within your gates, that your male servant and your female servant may rest as well as you. So that everyone is to rest. They are to rest because it is a sign that God has given them, that God has redeemed them from the nation of Israel, redeemed them from slavery, has purchased them, bought them as a people unto himself. Now, if someone did work on the Sabbath, what would happen to them? Well, there in Exodus 31, we do have where God says they shall be cut off from among the people, and they shall even be put to death. And in Numbers chapter 15, we find that's exactly what happened. Numbers 15, verse 32 through 36, the people catch a man picking up sticks on the Sabbath day, and they hold him. And Moses asked the Lord, what are we supposed to do with him? We saw this man, he was picking up sticks. You commanded us not to pick up sticks. You actually said this person deserves to die. And this is the perfect test case. What's going to happen? How important is it to not work on the Sabbath day? How important is it to not work on the Sabbath day for the nation of Israel? And we find out that it's extremely important not to do so. God tells them to put the man to death by stoning. Hence, we get the title of the book, Sticks, Stones, Sabbaths, and Sundays, because all this is connected, okay? Now, what we find in Numbers 15 is that this is a high-handed sin. The verses right before that, in verse 27 through 31, make mention of a high-handed sin that shall not be forgiven. It's open, it's obvious, it is intentionally against God, and that the person's iniquity shall be on him, and that breaking the Sabbath was a high-handed sin. Why is it such a high-handed sin? Well, again, this is a sign of the covenant that God made with them. They are to rest in God's provision and trust in him. And by this man not resting, when God said to rest, he disobeyed God, but he also rejected the covenant. This was a high-handed sin. As in, the hand goes up where everyone can see, this is a high-handed sin. Now, this person was told to be put to death by the people, and that's exactly what happened. Now, what does this mean for us today? If you see someone mowing their yard on a Sunday, is that the same thing? If you saw some sticks in your yard from a storm that came through the night before and you went out and picked them up, and other Christians saw you do such a thing, what should they do, right? Should they pick up stones? Should they at least come by and tell you that, hey, you're in sin, you should stop? What if you actually get a job on Sundays, right? So these are the realistic things. And as the book started, I even told you about a store that was open on Sundays in our town for the first time, and how shocked everyone was. And people would kind of get around that by, well, I'm not working going into the store, I'm just getting groceries. But according to the verses we just read, that would be making someone else do work for you. For instance, what if you go to a restaurant on a Sunday? If you believe that you should still obey these Sabbath rules and regulations as Israel did, and you order food, or someone has to clean up your table after you, or make food for you, or if you go into a convenience store on a Sunday, or go shopping anywhere on Sunday, or do the dishes, or do a load of laundry, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And if we really think about it, we are always breaking the Sabbath if we lived under the same rules and regulations as they did under the old covenant. So what happens to us? Now, before you get worried, let me jump ahead in the book and just say that no, you should not be put to death, and please do not pick up stones to stone anyone else. But the question is, why not? And if I were to stop right now and just say, answer me, why should you not stone a Christian who is mowing his yard on a Sunday? And you might say, well, he doesn't do it all the time. He can do it a little bit every now and then. You know, he was busy previously during the week and could only fit that in on Sunday. Then again, we go back to Numbers 15. How many times was this individual allowed to pick up sticks before he was stoned to death? And the answer is one time. So why should we not do such a thing to Christians who violate this old covenant rule? And this is a question that all of us can agree, okay, we shouldn't, and they shouldn't be punished, but yet, how do I prove this from Scripture? So, what one reason would you think of to protect yourself if a mob came upon you as you're mowing your yard? Many Christians would seriously struggle to answer this question. The correct answer is that God gave the Sabbaths as a part of a covenant to a particular people for a specific time. You should not be stoned for working on the Sabbath because God did not give those Sabbath rules to you. And along with that, neither were the punishments for breaking those Sabbath rules. The time of the old covenant has passed, and now believers are under a new covenant that is superior to the Mosaic covenant. As we will see, the Sabbath days and years of rest were a shadow of the ultimate rest that God provides by the person and work of Jesus Christ.